Mrs. Simpson, Mrs. Smith and Miss Lee are going on a trip. They're off on a sea voyage from Llandudno to Douglas on the Isle of Man. Mrs. Simpson, Mrs. Smith and Miss Lee are part of an older generation where ladies were not encouraged to show their emotions. Yet the three Llandudno ladies are clearly bubbling with excitement about their sea adventure.
Going out or going in? The sea coming in or going out?
Which is more than surprising, for this is their 16th outing on the Manx Ferry this season. And by the time the summer lights have gone out on Llandudno Pier, they'll have sailed to the Isle of Man and back 57 times.
So it'll be time for us to get on the boat, won't
This
it?
has been their daily routine every summer for the last 15 years. And though Mrs. Simpson, Mrs. Smith and Miss Lee are prone to the occasional little confusion over statistics, a general view did emerge that we had joined them on their 795th sea voyage from Llandudno to the Isle of Man. The captain and crew of the steamship Mona's Isle know who'll be first up the gangplank every morning. It's always Mrs. Smith and Miss Lee, eager for the 6-hour return trip. And Mrs. Simpson, her years in domestic service beginning to tell on her, follows on. A little slower perhaps, but her nautical spirit unbowed. The Isle of Man Steam Packet Company is a reassuringly old-fashioned name. And our old ladies are reassured by the naval clankings and hootings and ringings that always accompany their morning tea. And all these brave sights and sounds of the great British tradition for sailing the oceans come to them on a season ticket. This year it's 57 6-hour sea voyages for £23. Pensioners never fail to recognise good value for money. But of course, above all, it's an outing where you meet people.
I come for the company and the outing, and it makes a nice change from being in landing all the time.
I think you're in love with this boat, aren't you?
I'm in love with anything to do with boats. I wish I'd been a boy so I could have been on and been an officer on the ship.
Mrs. Smith, would you like to have been a sailor too?
No, I don't think I should. No, I like the boat. And I've always liked to come on the boat, but I wouldn't like to be a sailor.
How long have you been coming on the boat, in fact? How long have you been, all three of you, travelling now?
Oh, well, I've been about 25 to 26 years, I think.
No,
Yeah,
I
wasn't
just met you. It's 15 years. But it was a smaller boat, you know, it wasn't these big boats. We used to come on a smaller boat,
Yes,
didn't
but
we?
I thought they were talking about when I first came on. Well, came on with my daddy when I was a little child.
I came on the La Marguerite when I was about 9 years old. That was 1909. And my auntie brought me from, we were in Warrington, you see, and we came from Liverpool on the La Marguerite to Llandudno.
Have you never got bored with going backwards and forwards
No,
from Llandudno to the Isle of Man?
Lots of people ask.
Well, you see,
A lot of people in Llandudno say, don't you get bored, Mrs. Simpson? I said, no, it's a nice day's outing.
no, you see, we meet people. We get to know them, and you know, we look forward to it. And then you see, we have all the winter off it, and then we come back fresh again. You see.
Do you never wake up in the morning and think, oh, it'd be lovely just to sit in Llandudno today?
No, thank you.
No.
No, it's terribly upsetting when the boat's cancelled. You don't know what to do with yourself.
It's an indelicate thing to ask you, but you not get a little tired of each other's company at the end of the summer?
No, not at all.
No.
Why shouldn't you be happy in this world with everybody? That's what you're here for.
And
Life's too short to be
gentlemen,
miserable with people.
Those gentlemen that we sit with, we're all
happy together.
Or there's a bit of love interest, ladies, is there, with the gentlemen
no,
on
no,
here?
no,
They're all married
They're all
men.
married men.
And
They're all
the
married,
wives will
married.
go.
When the Llandudno ladies get their shore leave in Douglas, the orders of the day are always the same. Miss Lee rushes off to see her cousin, surely the most regularly visited relative in Britain. Mrs. Smith, erstwhile owner of a tobacconist, confectioner's and toy shop, does the Douglas shops daily. And old Mrs. Simpson, tagging on behind, makes a beeline for her favourite tea shop. But this sort of thing is for landlubbers, and all eyes are on the chronometer for 5:30 when Mona's Isle will sail again, bringing the Llandudno ladies more healthy sea air, another natter, and a sense of direction. Back in Llandudno again, with an ominous wind blowing up, Mrs. Smith and Miss Lee make landfall, just after 8:30 at night. And where is she? Oh yes, here's Mrs. Simpson too, just a little slower after her long day out, but hurrying home because in just 12 hours, Mrs. Simpson will be back with her season ticket clasped in her hand, chattering to Mrs. Smith and Miss Lee about the bad weather, and hoping that the ferry and their 796th trip won't be cancelled.